Hey folks, Todd Coburn here with a short little video on documentation expectations when certifying repairs. The repair documentation needs to be both tight and loose. A good repair is written loose enough so that the mechanics and the MRO doing the work have the freedom to use their judgment to make good decisions and put things together well, things that are hard for the engineer to predict up front. But they need to be tight enough to ensure that the design is put together precisely to the strength that is required and that is analyzed in the documentation. This can require a little bit of experience to get that sweet spot of control without over control. Usually I've seen this err on the too much leeway realm, but a good repair will both give leeway while ensuring the repair is done precisely as needed. But the purpose of this video is to focus more on what the engineering documentation for the analysis is. This is the area that I have found seems to be the weakest across the most companies I have worked with. The problem is actually, and this goes back into my experience with Boeing as well. So the problem is a lot of times folks like to arm wave. They will just say it's good by inspection. It seems to be good. We're not really sure how to analyze it. A bunch of other people approve this, therefore it must be good, and it needs to just be signed. Basically on the word or on the judgment of looking and making it appear to be fine. Now, my advisor at the FAA, we were discussing some items recently, and he basically made the statement that any structural repair that needs an analysis, that needs an approval, needs an analysis to document it. And he cited a case where a really good engineer was frequently just approving based on judgment without a scrap of documentation. This guy was very sharp. He was very competent and kind of knew what he was talking about. However, he refused to put documentation together because he thought it was too trivial, and therefore they finally had to pull his DER ticket. I actually agree with that line of thinking. There are many things that are challenging to write analysis to, and sometimes the more benign a repair is, the more challenging it can be to come up with a way to analyze that and show that it's good. However, a lot of times we'll think this is fine, and as soon as we start putting analysis to it, we find out it's quite challenging to show that it's fine. Not just because it's hard to come up with a way, but because when you actually go through the process of putting analysis to it, you start recognizing that there are eccentricities, there are secondary moments, some of these other things that at least need to be thought about and documented what judgment is being applied when approving that repair. There have been many times I was working a repair or approving a repair where an analysis was done or a statement was made, and I went and I said, yeah, I agree with that, but let me throw some documentation together. And as soon as I started doing that, I had trouble finding positive margin. Not that we want to make the margins positive regardless, but if the structure is good, you generally can put analysis to it. There are some that we can be quite conservative with a simple analysis and show good, and others that need quite a bit more analysis to show that it's good. And once you start trying to put analysis to it, you realize, oh my gosh, this is not as straightforward as I thought. And then you need to think about where does the load go, how it will respond under ultimate loads, whichever load you're analyzing to, and making sure that the structure will indeed carry the load. You can have quite loose, quite approximate analysis as long as it's simple, conservative, reasonable approach. It can be quite simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. But sometimes in order to show it good, we will have to do more detailed and complicated analysis just to show positive margin. And often this happens on these repairs that look like they're just an arm wave. So a good DER does not succumb to just approving without analysis. Every single analysis needs to, every single repair needs to have analysis. If they don't need analysis, they don't need a DER to approve it. So if it needs a DER approval, it's going to need some kind of analytical analysis showing it good. This analysis can be quite rough, quite simple, quite approximate, as long as it's a little bit on the conservative side or on the acceptable side, reasonable side, and it shows positive margin. We need to think about what failure modes, shear, bearing, bending, tear out, these kind of things. You don't need to write a margin of safety on each one of these, but you need to think about it and address in words and numbers each item requiring approval. So I hope this helps in clarifying documentation expectations when certifying repairs. If you need a little help, feel free to look at my other content online for doing different kinds of analysis. That's all free. Make sure you subscribe so you stay connected with the latest updates and be watching for more videos on repairs and alterations and these kind of things. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, or if you need help getting your certification needs or you need an approval, I'll be happy to review your work. Enjoy.